How we doing, guys? Welcome to DT's Daily. It's Monday morning, and on today's show, the question is very, very simple. Is international football ruining our game? For me, 100%. It's ruining everything, and it's having an effect on the Premier League and the Champions League and the Bundesliga, La Liga, Serie A, and all the rest of it. Okay, football in general is having an effect because of international football. And the reason why I'm going to speak about this is because we're right in the midst of an international break again. 4 weeks after an international break. And guess what? In 4 weeks' time, another international break. Now, for as long as I can remember, since I was a little kid, international football's always been a thing. But I don't ever remember it being like this. I don't remember it being every 4 weeks. Stop, start, and all the rest of it. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, right, well, you've got like this Nations League now, which is supposed to minimize, friendlies. Yet England had a friendly against Wales, for the first of their 2 matches. And there's an issue there within itself because they've got a qualifier, which is coming up, and they have a friendly, and they use Bukayo Saka and Declan Rice in the friendlies when you know full well that they're going to be starting the qualifier. So why are they not rested for the friendly game? Why are they used for over 60 minutes in that? Somebody explain how that makes any logical sense. A friendly should be there to try things, give some players that might not get those opportunities some moments. Why not play Jarrod Bowen? Doesn't start all the time for England, doesn't get loads of opportunities. He's never going to be first choice ahead of Bukayo Saka. Why not start him in the game against Wales? Saka's just come back from an injury. A big injury last season and then a minor one this season. So where's the logic behind it? And I'm looking at it, and the reason why I'm saying it's having an effect on the Premier League and the Champions League is because you're now having to make changes based on the amount of minutes that these players are playing. Now, I'm going to use the top sides that are playing Champions League football as an example here. There's some clubs that might not have European football that have players on international duty, and it's fine because they're not playing in midweek. They're not having to look at where they need to rotate and everything else. But Arsenal is an example here. We've got Fulham at the weekend. We've then got Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. And then we got Crystal Palace. Now, I'm looking at that and I'm saying that's 3 difficult games in the space of, 7, 8 days? I think it is because we play Palace on the Sunday. So, 8 days, right? Now, we were fortunate enough with the Olympiacos game to be able to take Eza, Rice, Saka, Timber, Calafiori, all of these players out of the side. But then that's at a detriment to the Champions League as well. Because surely, if you're watching the Champions League, you want to see Bukayo Saka. You want to see Declan Rice. And in an ideal world, Mikel Arteta would want to see, those players playing. But he knows he's got a big game coming up that weekend, and then they go on international duty. And they're probably going to get absolutely rinsed. And he's got to work out game management. So I'm looking at this one and I'm going, okay, Fulham, Atletico Madrid, Crystal Palace. No disrespect to Fulham, but that's probably the game you look at out of the 3 and you say, might have to make some changes. Because if players have played a lot of minutes, and done a lot of traveling and stuff, then you might have to look at that one to rotate. But then how's that fair? How's that right that we have to compensate because of all of these ridiculous friendlies that are every 4 weeks? It doesn't make sense to me. And if you're going to talk about the next set of friendlies in 4 weeks' time, we come back off the next international break and we play Tottenham, Bayern Munich, and Chelsea. How on earth do you pick that apart? How on earth do you look at those 3 fixtures in the space of 7 days and go, yeah, we'll leave Declan Rice out of this and Saka out of that? And you can't afford to. Those games are so big that you probably have to gonna run the risk of playing certain players that you might not want to play because they're playing a lot of minutes. So how's that right? Because if they get injured, then they're out for a considerable period of time. We all miss out. The club, the fans. So it's having an effect. We're looking at the games, and I'm talking Arsenal specifically here. And somebody can let me know in the comment section what the, Champions League matches are for this week. With all the sides that have got a lot of international players and predominantly the English sides and, maybe Munich and Barcelona, Madrid, etc. And see what their corresponding fixtures are. Because some of them might be quite fortunate where they have a Champions League game like what we had with Olympiacos, where they can go, okay, we'll leave him out, we'll leave him out, we'll leave him out. But what if they're not so fortunate? And listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that we're not in quite a good position with the size of our squad and how much depth we have at the moment. But we still don't want to be going into games, big games, just when we've got ourselves to the top of the league as well. And we're looking and we're going, okay, we've got to leave Saka out of this one and Declan Rice out of this one and possibly Gabriel because the amount of travelling he's had to do because, Brazil were in Korea. Julian Timber, I'd probably say is all right because he's already completed his, international matches and he gets a 4 weeks rest. But there's so many for so many clubs, and this is not just Arsenal. I'm using Arsenal as a guide because it's my club and I know it better than anything. But I just don't understand all these breaks, and you got to remember this year as well, we've got the African Cup of Nations, which is what, mid-December to mid to late January time. And there's so many clubs that are going to be affected. And what do you do? Like, you need these type of competitions. But right in the middle of a season, and I think this has been an argument for a long time anyway, but December and January, Premier League, for example, are notoriously crucial months in a season. They can make and break seasons. And you're going to be losing some of your best players. I know he's not had the best start to the season, Mohamed Salah, but Liverpool are going to lose him for up to a month. You've got to kind of presume that Egypt are going to pretty much go most of the way, given the fact that they've won it more times than anybody else. But that's not what Liverpool would want, would they? They don't want to lose Mohamed Salah for a month. In there, they've got to play Arsenal. For us, and me, I'm an Arsenal fan, I'm looking at that and saying, that could be all right. I wouldn't mind not having to deal with Mo Salah. But you get what I'm saying here? I just don't understand none of the structure. Whatever kind of football it is, whether it's South America, Africa, European football, none of it makes any sense to me. None of it does. How it's structured, the way it is, the fact that it just interferes with so much of our main football, our bread and butter, shall we say. And it's like, We're a week into this international break, and it's been so long. So long. And I know I'm not the only person that thinks it. Let's be honest about it. And it's just boring. Let's be real. And it's the fact that they're so frequent right now. Every 4 weeks, we start the new season. We're all buzzing. We're 4 weeks in, international break. Then we come back and we're getting going and it's getting exciting, and international break. And again, we're going to play a load of games now, 7 games, and we're like, right, yes, exciting. Here we go, big games, Bayern Munich, Atletico Madrid, and we've got Crystal Palace in there who are having an unbelievable season. And then international break. And then we come back from that and it's like Spurs, Bayern Munich, Chelsea. Yeah, crack on and deal with it. It's winding me up because I just don't understand none of the logic behind it. And, you know, international football itself, apart from the main tournaments, they're just boring. I'm not one of these that's into international football. Love my country, but I could not care less about international football. Yeah, it's great in the summer when there's a World Cup or a Euros and it's coming home and it never does and all the rest of it, yeah? But international football to me is absolutely nothing. You know, if you gave me the option of England winning a World Cup or Arsenal winning the Carabao Cup, I'm picking the Carabao Cup all day long. I would take Arsenal winning the Emirates Cup over England winning anything. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see England win a World Cup or a Euros. Be nice to see that in my lifetime. But it doesn't mean that it's my priority. Doesn't mean that I want to see that. So for me, international football, nah, don't like it at all. And it just ruins our game. And it's because of the knock-on effect that we're seeing heavily rotated teams in the Premier League and we're seeing heavily rotated sides in the Champions League. And that's because of the schedule. So as an effect of that, the Champions League's affected. The Premier League's affected. If it's going on in the Bundesliga and La Liga and Serie A and all the rest of it, it's having an effect all the way through. But do I think the FA would do anything differently? Do I think that the, organizations that deal with all of this do anything differently? No. Why? Money. That's the real root of the situation here. Let's be honest about it. You only have to look at the fact that the FA are putting friendlies on at Wembley. It's no surprise that Thomas Tuchel is turning around and speaking about how poor the atmosphere was. And I don't blame the fans in that respect. But have you seen how much it is to go to Wembley? You need a mortgage to park your car in the car park there. If you want to get something to eat, my word, it's probably cheaper at Ramsay's restaurant. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. The prices are just extortionate. Why not, when England are playing, go round to different clubs all around the country, from the northeast, down south, and all the rest of it. Go to places where fans might not get the opportunity to see their country play. And, put a cap on the prices, like 20 quid for an adult, tenner for a under 16 or whatever it might be. Make it affordable. Life is hard for a lot of people at the moment. And they don't just have that spare money, especially not to take their kids to a game of football. And that's a tradition that means a lot to me because that's a tradition that was passed down to me from my dad. Going to football matches. And it's a tradition that I pass down to my children. You know, my 3 sons have all been to games with me consistently. Last time out against West Ham, I'm at the game with my 10-year-old son and he's loving it. And I'm fortunate, very, very fortunate. Don't get me mistaken on that. But some people don't have that luxury and they don't have that opportunity, whether it's club football, international football, whatever. But the FA don't care. They don't care. They just want that. Why do you think the FA Cup semi-finals were played at Wembley? When I was growing up as a kid, semi-finals were all about playing at a neutral venue. I've watched Arsenal play at Old Trafford, Villa Park. You know, I even remember a semi-final at Highbury when it was Liverpool-Portsmouth, if I remember rightly. I remember classic semi-finals, Crystal Palace against Liverpool at Villa Park. Unbelievable. And I think the first time I remember it being at Wembley was when we drew Spurs in a semi-final. And he didn't know what to do. How are we going to send one of these, like, most hated rivals to wherever? And then ironically, we end up playing Spurs in a semi-final. I think it was when Wembley was closed and it was being rebuilt. And they sent us to Old Trafford. And that was hilarious within itself, the drive on the M6 and that, and how they had designated service station for each club. Like, I don't expect anything less from the FA and that. I really don't. But yeah, listen, I could sit all day long and go off on one. But look, at the end of the day, I think it's very clear. International football is ruining the game because there's just too many games at the moment. There's just too many, you know, all these little breaks. And one thing they were saying is maybe have less breaks, fit more games in, and the break be longer. So you want us to play 4, 5, 6 weeks of a season and then go off on international duty for 3, 4 weeks. What? Come on. Stop. Just stop. It's got to be fixed. It has to be fixed. But how? I don't know. Let me know in the comment section. So there we go. That is it. You know what to do if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button, smash a like on this video, and I will see you lot soon. I'm out of here.